Welcome to What is a Jeopardy podcast, where we make fun of the smartest show on television, even though I've caught my own hair on fire 4 times.
4 times?
4 times.
That's crazy that you can count the number of times.
What, do you think you don't remember the number of do you not remember how many times your hair has caught on fire?
No, I remember. It's 0. It's 0 times. I mean, I guess it helps having short hair, but what was the worst time? Can you just real quick, what was the worst time you caught it on fire?
I think the worst time I caught it on fire was when I was about 3 and I was at a pizza place with my family and my sister's soccer team, and it caught on fire and my mom dumped a root beer on my head.
That's cool. That's actually kind of cool.
On this inaugural episode of our podcast, we're talking about the first 6 games of the long-awaited Tournament of Champions, some major upsets both in the game and online, neo-pronouns, and we're going to end the show with a Canadian teaching us a little bit about U.S. politics.
That's me. I'm the Canadian guy.
But first, should we get to know our hosts?
Yeah, let's get to know us. I'm John. You may know me from Blocked Party or comedy, or more likely, none of those things. I'm just up here in Calgary, Alberta, a little hamlet in Canada. I've been a lifelong Jeopardy fan. I used to watch it with my parents. I'm like one of those boring anecdote people who's just like, yeah, my mom and dad love Jeopardy, and they got me into it. But I genuinely would watch it all the time with my parents, and I've been a lifelong fan, and I'm thrilled to be talking about it every week with you. What about you, Emily? Tell us about you.
My name is Emily. I am a comedian. You might know me from my hair catching on fire 4 times. Did you see a person with their hair on fire? That was me, probably. I only started watching Jeopardy on a regular basis in the last few years. Obviously, it was in the ether of my life growing up because I live in America. But I've gotten much more into it in the last few years. You and I connected over it. We literally
you saw a
met.
tweet of mine about Jeopardy. You started following me. You came on my podcast, and we basically did the first episode of this podcast on Blocked Party, where we just talked about Jeopardy the whole time. And I was like, we should do a Jeopardy podcast for real.
We should do a Jeopardy podcast. And now we are, and not a minute too soon, because we have so much to talk about today. But I'm so excited. We're gonna have some fun talking about Jeopardy. We love this show. We love the contestants on it. Bear that in mind.
We love everybody, and we're stupid.
We love everybody, and we're stupid.
We're really stupid.
Yeah, my toxic trait is I'm convinced that if I was on Jeopardy, I would not be nervous at all, and I would just be fine. And I know that is not true, but I also deep down believe that it is true. I would not do well.
You don't think you would win, right? You don't think you would win, but you would just be cool on the show.
I think I would win on Celebrity Jeopardy for sure. But I think I refuse to learn the periodic table of the elements, so I would not do well on regular Jeopardy.
Yeah, that's tough. That's tough. Yeah.
Okay, let's get into the games. We so don't have time to fuck around. This was such an intense week plus of games.
Yeah, normally we'll just be recapping the previous week, but the Tournament of Champions started 1 day early. So instead of 5 game recaps, we have 6. This is a supersized episode for episode 1.
Yeah, and we couldn't leave out a single one of these games.
No.
So starting with Friday, February 23rd. Am I doing this one, or are you doing this one?
I don't know. You do it.
All right.
You're already doing it.
I'm doing it. I'm in. Our first quarterfinal matchup, the contestants are 4-game champion Matthew Marcus, a software developer and substitute teacher from Portland, Oregon. 6-game champion Suresh Krishnan, a networking engineer from Suwanee, Georgia. And 3-game champion and Champions Wildcard winner Emily Sands, a project manager from Chanhassen, Minnesota. Emily gets off to an early lead, though all the players struggled a bit with the Jeopardy round. There were a lot of triple stumpers. Matthew went in and out of the negative, and Suresh lost everything on the first Daily Double. In Double Jeopardy, though, Emily builds on some great momentum at the beginning so that when she hits that first Daily Double, she's got $14,000 and an $8,200 lead over Matthew in second place. She bets $7,000. She's correct, and it's basically over after that. Suresh loses everything on the last Daily Double, never regaining enough to compete in Final Jeopardy. And even though Emily only adds $800 for the rest of the game, it's still enough for a runaway. Final Jeopardy category is French authors. The clue: trained as a priest and a physician in 1532, he published his first novel under the pen name Alcofribus Nacier. Matthew correctly responds Rabelais, while Emily uses her response to shout out the Jeopardy fans. John, what did you think of this first game?
Classic pandering from Emily. I will skip answering this question. I always wonder, because now contestants are doing this more often, where if they have a runaway or if they know they've lost, they will take their opportunity to write something down like "I love my wife" or "Thank you to the Jeopardy fans."
And
or
to be fair, it seems like this is happening more recently just because we've been in tournaments for the last 4 months.
Yes.
So
and
that's
so when
much
you're
more
out,
tournament
you're out.
behavior.
Yeah, it is much more tournament behavior, but it does make me wonder if they knew it. Like, did Emily know Rabelais and was like, "I'm going to shout at the Jeopardy fans," or was she like, "I don't know anything about this Alcofribus Nacier, whatever."
Yeah.
So that's always interesting to me.
Is it a dick move to answer it correctly if you have a runaway? Because
I
people
don't think
will do
so.
it.
I don't feel like it's a dick move. I feel like it's you're just saying like, yeah, I also knew this. So guess what? Hey, guess what? I also knew this answer.
Yeah,
I like Emily, though.
But that makes it sound like a dick move.
I guess so. I feel like I wouldn't want to get it wrong, I guess. Like I don't know. I feel like my desire, and maybe I am a dick, but I feel like my desire to be like, no, I also know the answer to this question would outweigh my desire to be like, oh, my wife is cool or whatever.
I'm going to tell your wife you said that.
I mean, she'll listen to this, so she'll hear it.
She knows.
She knows. She's
she knows
cool.
That's who you are.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't think I'm a dick. But anyway, I was happy to see Emily win this game. You and I did some test episodes of this show during the Champions Wildcard. We both really liked Emily as a player.
Yes.
She's very strong player, and yeah, taking down a 6-game and a 4-game champion. And she was just in control the whole time. It was great. And also, I love that she is from Chanhassen, Minnesota, which sounds like the most Minnesotan town name that you could possibly be from.
Yeah, that sounds pretty Minnesotan. I really loved watching this game. Yeah, Emily qualified for the Tournament of Champions after winning one of the Champions wildcard spots, and she's just such a strong, consistent player. I like watching competence. I like when the right person wins. I was absolutely rooting for her, and I just really need to savor this because this is the last time that someone I was rooting for will win for this entire first 6 games.
Yeah, this was like the tournament of chaos.
Yes, that is what people are actually calling it.
Oh, really?
Online.
I didn't even
yes,
notice.
on Reddit, people are saying, "Welcome to the tournament of chaos."
Oh well,
and
Dan,
it
edit
truly
that out.
is.
I don't want to be like the people online or whatever.
Too late,
Damn
bitch.
Fuck. The first episode of this show, and I'm already embarrassing myself.
Yeah, thank God.
Yeah, better me than you, I guess.
Yeah, I'm cool, and no one's ever gonna prove me uncool.
That you're absolutely right. You will be the cool member of this show. That's one thing across all the podcasts I've done is I've sort of made a market for myself of being the less liked member of the thing that I'm doing. So I am also very prepared for that to happen with this program.
Yeah, and I mean, that's something for you to explore in therapy later. But right now, we got to talk about Monday's game.
My therapist will be so excited to hear about my new Jeopardy podcast. But yes, speaking of the Tournament of Chaos, Monday, February 26th, our contestants are 3-game champion Jared Watson, a quality control specialist from Greenville, Texas, 5-game champion Ben Goldstein, a director of content marketing and former MMA journalist from Dexter, Michigan, and 21-time champion Chris No H Panulo, a customer success operations manager from Ocean City, New Jersey. This was an incredible game for Jared. At the end of the Jeopardy round, he and Chris are neck and neck with $8,800 each, but in Double Jeopardy, Jared gets on a roll. He has a $6,000 lead over Chris when he hits the first daily double of the round and doubles his lead. Chris needs a miracle that does not come as Jared gets the last daily double of the game, bringing his score up to $27,000 to Chris's stagnant $8,800. Chris gets a little momentum towards the end, but Jared clinches the runaway with 3 clues to go. The final Jeopardy category is art history. The clue is the Royal Academy of Arts has this man's La Fornarina, and in the 1800s, the RAA's love of him made some artists retreat to an earlier style. Only Jared correctly guesses Raphael, and Chris wagered everything to end up in 3rd place with $0. Chris Panulo out of the Tournament of Champions in the first round. Emily, let us grieve.
I am too fragile for this. I am too fragile for this. I was wrecked by this game. My husband was like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "Is this what sports fans feel like?" I am so destroyed. What the fuck happened here? I mean, okay. To be fair, like, Jared is a good player. You know, when his run ended, it was a game where he was in the lead and got unlucky in Final Jeopardy. So, like, he could have gone on a much longer run, I'm sure. And he played very well in this game. But this is absolutely not how I expected this tournament to fucking go.
I mean, we have seen in the past, the Tournament of Champions, it's been very consistent that the season's dominant super champion or champions go on deep runs in the TOC. We've seen it with James Holtzhauer. We've seen it with Matt Amodio. We've seen it with Amy Schneider. I guess Matt lost in the semi in his Tournament of Champions, I believe. But Chris losing in the opening round, especially when you consider Jared was a 3-game champion. In the past, 3-game champions didn't even get into the Tournament of Champions. It had to be 5 or maybe a 4-game winner, but they expanded the field to 27 this year. And yeah, it was crazy. It was odd because it just seemed like Chris could just, I don't know if Jared figured out the buzzer timing or Chris lost his buzzer timing, but Jared was just out buzzing him on everything in Double Jeopardy.
Yes. And I will say, so Jared went on Reddit to talk about what happened. Obviously, like,
to
this
defend
game...
his own honor.
Well, and to apologize for wrecking everyone's bracket.
Aw, what a nice guy.
But he did kind of explain what happened. And I will say this explanation did help me make sense of this, which was, he said, and I quote, "Playing Chris was my nightmare scenario going in, as I'm sure it was for many of the other contestants in this absolutely loaded field. So when they announced the matchup right before I went on stage, it really felt like any aspirations I had for making it to the next round died then and there." But then a funny thing happened. I remembered a late night chat I had with, I think, Jesse Chin before I went to shoot the TOC, where he told me I was as good as anybody else in this tournament and that I deserved to be there. But I think he said, "I had kind of a Tuesdays with Maury moment where I learned how to die, so then I learned how to live. I had nothing to lose and the pressure was off because nobody expected me to win."
I like the idea that Jared's like, this is such a Jeopardy moment where it's like, yeah, I was drunk late on a Friday night and I'm Facebook messaging another Jeopardy contestant to be like, fuck, man, what happens if I play Chris? This is going to be... Can you even imagine if I played Chris right now, dude? That'd be so fucked up. And Jesse's like, dude, Jesse's also drunk too. And he's like, no, man, seriously, dude. Like, dude, you're as good as Chris, man. You're as good at, look at me. You're as good as Chris, man.
He also said too that the 70s rock category he said, if I had to handpick a category that I would feel the most confident in, then that would probably be the one I choose for himself. So the luck of the draw in terms of the categories he got.
Sometimes you just get like a Slumdog Millionaire moment, right? Like, not that that's what Jared's was, but you just get that like, wow, every category just kind of lined up for me. And it can be reversed too. Like, that is my toxic trait, is that I believe I could win a regular Jeopardy game, but when I go on regular Jeopardy, all of the categories will be specifically out of my wheelhouse. Be like, here,
it'd be like
opera, American history.
You just get like a reverse Cliff Clavin situation.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, so Emily, before we move on to Tuesday, just very quickly, like, obviously Chris was the favorite to win. Were you wanting him to win as well? Like, he was your guy?
Yeah. I mean, again, I like... I'm such a weird Jeopardy fan. I'm like, I want the overdog to win. I always want the returning champion to win again. I don't want upsets.
Right, okay.
I'm very fragile. Do not upset me.
It's called an upset for a reason. It's because I cry when the person I want to win loses.
I mean, I think just because we know how strong of a player he is, and I think there are a lot of people in this tournament who wanted to see how they do against him, and they don't get to find out.
Yeah. Well, and I think, like, you know, he talked about in his anecdote being an alternate for the Jeopardy Masters last year.
Right.
Like, it definitely seemed like that was kind of the path that he was heading on, 21 game champion, you go on, win the Tournament of Champions. Now all of a sudden you're in that discussion with the Andrew Hees and Matea Roaches and stuff of the world, this sort of new class of players. And maybe this loss kind of takes him out of that, which would be unfortunate.
Yes. Although I will say, I think on the official, like Jeopardy is doing the Jeopardy Invitational Tournament.
Yes.
The JIT, and they're like reserving a spot for like a producer pick, regardless of like tournament
it will be
performance.
Chris.
What?
It will be Chris.
And so it'll be Chris. I'm like, they did that for him.
No question about it.
Yeah. Should we move on to Tuesday?
Yeah, let's talk Tuesday.
Tuesday, February 27th. Our quarterfinalists are 3-game champion and Champions wildcard winner Youngshin Wang, a deputy public defender originally from Lafayette, Louisiana. 4-game champion David Sibley, an Episcopal priest from Walla Walla, Washington. And 8-game champion Hannah Wilson, a puzzle designer from Chicago, Illinois. David gets out to an early lead at the end of the Jeopardy round, but Hannah jumps way ahead in Double Jeopardy on the strength of a $7,000 wager on a daily double. But when she hits the next daily double, she wagers, hoping for a runaway, and loses $10,000. She struggles to regain the lead as David picks up a ton of clues and heads into final with a sizable but not insurmountable lead. Final Jeopardy category is military history. The clue: a prototype of this craft was deployed in August 1955. It made headlines in May 1960. All 3 players correctly guess U2, and David picks up the second major upset win of the tournament so far. What did you think of this game, John?
Well, again, I did want Hannah to win. Mm-hmm. Emily, are you familiar with the show Letterkenny?
It has been shown to me on my Hulu home screen, but you don't know what Hulu is, do you?
Who, what now? This is like a who's on first for me. Yeah. Diamond Phillips, Reed, just naming all the Lous I know. Yeah, I do know what Hulu is. We don't have it in Canada, but Letterkenny is a Canadian show. It's about a fictional small farming town in northern Ontario. Very funny show if you've never seen it. And David Sibley, there is a character on the show that is like a sort of gregarious priest, and David reminds me so much of that character. It's crazy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's so weird when a contestant really reminds you of someone else.
He even kind of looks like the guy who plays this. Yes, who plays this priest on the show. Yes, it's Jacob Tierney who plays the priest, and David they're so similar. It's crazy. But I like David a lot. He is a mutual friend of the show, I believe. We're only on our first episode, but we do already have Jeopardy contestants who are like, I'll come on your podcast. Like, we
might have David on. I'm going to wait and see what happens in the rest of the tournament.
Yeah.
Who knows? What if he wins it? Then we definitely have to have him on.
Look, David, you win the TOC, we'll let you on the pod.
You
Otherwise,
win the TOC,
don't fucking talk to me, dude.
We'll consider having you on our podcast that has one episode.
Yeah, exactly. Listen, buddy, we got 150 Instagram followers, okay? You want to fucking come on this show? How about you win a few games and then fucking talk to me, dude? But this was, David played very well. Again, it was like just a case of, I think for me, I'm the same as you. I love a super champ, and I very much enjoyed Hannah's run on the show. Really enjoyed her play. And I liked David, and I liked Yangsheng. I liked all of them. For me, it wasn't a case of that, but
Yangsheng, it takes someone like Hannah for me to be rooting for someone who, like, when there's a public defender competing and I'm not rooting for him. Like, that's usually an automatic I'm rooting for you.
Yeah, you love the law and the people who enforce the law. And we do know that about you, Emily.
No, that's prosecutors. Public defenders defend criminals.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Is that good?
Yes.
Okay, I don't fucking know anything. I don't know how America works. We don't have laws in Canada. We don't have courts. We just
we don't need them.
Yeah, we'll let God sort them out. But yeah, it was what I was going to say is I don't mind if a dominant champ that I like loses if they lose in a fashion befitting that loss. You know what I mean? Like, David played very well, earned the win. It's the same as Jared. It's like, yes, I wanted Chris to win. I really like Chris, but like, he played very well. It wasn't like, oh no, like they fucked up a daily double and it cost them everything or whatever. Like, they earned their win. David earned this win.
Or like when someone's like clearly the better player and has a huge lead going into final, but not a runaway, and then the next person like doubles their money and the person in front loses. Then I get a little salty about those ones. But yeah. And it should be, again, worth noting that David Sibley's initial run only ended when he went up against Chris Panullo.
Yes.
So you do have to wonder how far he would have gone if he hadn't faced that bad luck. And also, again, I'm sure he wanted that rematch, and now he's not going to get it.
So true. So true.
All right.
Anyway, let's get to know us. This is where we're going to normally do the anecdotes for the show, just like Jeopardy. We did tell us a little bit about ourselves off the top of the show, but that's just because it's episode 1. But now we are actually going to get to know each other.
Yeah, we're gonna break up the gameplay with some fun questions. So, John, I heard you received a strange text message recently.
So I have been saving this because we did about, 5 or 6 test episodes of this show before we felt comfortable doing whatever it is now.
This is the end result of that.
This is the end result of that.
Finally tuned.
Finally,
formula.
Absolutely. We tightened the screws and here it is. But so I've been saving this for our first real episode. But I want to go back to the start of this show. We talked about, so you and I, we got to know each other on Twitter. I had a tweet about Jeopardy. You started following me. You started DMing me. We kind of talked about Jeopardy.
That makes it sound like way thirstier than it was. But
sorry,
okay.
We're both married. It wasn't it doesn't sound that thirsty to be like, hey, I hear you like Jeopardy. To me, that's like, nah. I think everybody is dry and soft in this situation.
I feel like that's how half of the people on Jeopardy got married.
You're right. There are some weird anecdotes where it's just like, they stalked me online and now we're so happy. No, sorry. I didn't mean to make it sound thirsty. It was just like we started talking about Jeopardy. And then out of nowhere, about probably a month after we started DMing, I got a text about Jeopardy. And I was like, from a number I didn't recognize. And I was like, okay, I was showing it to my wife. I'm like, who is texting me about Jeopardy? This is so weird. So I actually have a question for you. How did you get my phone number?
You don't understand how iMessage works?
I never iMessaged you. Oh, you used my email?
I just put your email address in.
Oh my God. Okay.
I don't know your phone number.
Okay. It was like it showed up as a phone. Like I have your phone number. Like it showed up as your phone number on my iMessage. And I was like, how the fuck did Emily get
I
my
need to
phone
stop
number?
doing this because you're the second person who I know and am friends with lately who's been like, hey, I mean, not to be weird, but how did you get my number?
Yeah, it was totally fine. I wasn't like mad or anything. I was just like, because I was like, you don't really know Stefan.
I thought it would show you my email address.
No, it just showed you I have your phone number. So I'll give you my phone number. It only feels like a fair exchange now, but I was just like, what the hell? It's
what
crazy.
The hell is going on? Oh, that's really funny. Yeah, I guess I don't know how iMessage works either. Like, I just assumed it would show you my email address as the sender, but I guess
phone number.
not.
Yeah, I can call you on the telephone if I want. Emily, it says here that you have actually attended a live Jeopardy taping. Tell me about that.
That's true. Don't mean to brag, but Ken invited me.
Whoa, tell me more.
Yeah, so I have been to a Jeopardy taping. I DM'd Ken during Chris Panullo's run because I was on the Jeopardy YouTube page and they accidentally uploaded a video that they were supposed to upload the following day that confirmed that he won an extra game that I couldn't have known about. And I was like, I will keep this quiet if you give me a Jeopardy hat. And he was like, you should come to a taping sometime. Like, I'm sure we have a closet full of them. And so me and my husband went down to Culver City. It's interesting because it's the studio lot where I used to work too. So I was like, I've walked by there like a million times, but it was so fun. If you're ever in LA, I strongly recommend figuring out a way to go if they're taping while you're in town. It moves so fast. They don't edit very much out of the show at all. Like they do a couple pickups, but it's real time and they shoot 5 games a day. And I was there for Mira Hayward's wins, and I was sitting next to her sibling, and it was incredibly fun. And so I feel like a real insider here.
You are.
They forgot to give me a hat.
Okay, well, you got to get back in Ken's DMs, be like, listen, where's that fucking hat, dude?
Where's that fucking hat, man?
Did Ken follow you, or is he just a general DM responder?
He followed me at some point. I have no idea why. And maybe he'll unfollow me as soon as he finds out about this podcast.
I would say there's a really good chance that's going to happen.
If we do this podcast right, we are going to make enemies of the institution of Jeopardy.
Exactly. Like, I'm kind of hoping, like, another one of my toxic traits is that this podcast blows up to the point where they have us on Celebrity Jeopardy to be like, these two fucking stink. They're gonna get their ass blown off.
To humiliate us?
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, you guys want to talk shit every week about Jeopardy? Fine. Come on the show. We'll see how you do.
Can I tell you like a truly delusional thought that I had?
Yes, please.
I was like, is this podcast going to ruin my chances of being on Celebrity Jeopardy, and is it worth it?
I guess you have to ask yourself, first of all, is it going to ruin your chances of becoming a celebrity? Just start with that. and then work your way forward from there. We had really considered you for this writer's room on this huge movie, but then we listened to one episode of that Jeopardy podcast you're doing.
Yeah.
And
this is my Madame Web. My career killer. All right, let's get back into the game because we've still got so much to talk about.
We've got 3 more games to talk about. This one, kind of a wild matchup here. You'll hear from the number of games these contestants won, but 3-game champion Yogesh Rout, a social and personality psychologist from Vancouver, Washington, 3-game champion Jake Diaruda, a delivery routing assistant originally from Ludlow, Vermont, and 1-game champion and Champions Wildcard winner Nick Casconi, an orthopedic physician assistant originally from Queens, New York. It was a very dramatic game, we ended the Jeopardy round with Jake in the lead off of the strength of a huge daily double. He got 14,400 to Yogesh's 5,600. But in double Jeopardy, Yogesh is on fire. Without getting either daily double, he adds over 20,000 to his score, while Jake adds 0 to his own. Yogesh ended the round with a substantial lead, though not a runaway. The final Jeopardy category is 1950s politics. The clue: in 1959, Bob Bartlett and Hiram Fong each won a coin flip to gain this alliterative title. It's a triple stumper. The answer was senior senator, and Yogesh sails through the semis with $24,799. Should also be noted, Nick got both daily doubles in double Jeopardy, doubled up on his first one to make it a very close game, and then lost it all on his second one to take himself out of contention.
Which, I mean, you have to do it. You have to do it.
You have to. But against players of this caliber, you have to.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, this was... the stats on this game are incredible. Like, Yogesh got... I mean, we'll probably talk about, like, Coriat scores. Am I saying that correctly? It's basically like what your score would be if they took out all the daily doubles and the wagering and all of that stuff that goes into it. It's just like the bare bones, how much money would you have? Like, his score is like as high as some of the combined scores of other games this week. Like, he got
to
like
26,000. I think he had 26,600 going into final off of no daily doubles is crazy.
And I think 0 incorrect responses.
Yeah.
That said, in terms of like just compared to the other games that we're talking about, this is nightmare blunt rotation. Like, just the vibes were a little different in this game than the other ones, but it was unquestionably like a great game to watch.
It was really funny because Jake, I watched in his original run, obviously an excitable fella.
Yes.
And I played him. I occasionally spare in online quiz league, or OQL for short. And I played Jake in a game, and very lovely, very like chill. Like, it was a completely different vibe. It was just like, Jake's at home. He's chilling. Really good dude. And not that he's not a good dude on Jeopardy either, but he's very much like, very
I think,
excitable.
Like, I am sure that this experience is capable of bringing out the absolute worst in you. Like, it's very hard to not have this bring out the worst in you. Like,
no,
it's a really stressful situation.
I would be like, I mean,
people
would
will
not
say,
like me if I was on the show. I'll just say that.
I honestly think so. Like, I am such a competitive person, and like, I have ended friendships over the game Mafia.
Oh my God.
Not good friendships, but they're toast.
They were tenuous at best.
Yes, tenuous at best.
And
but
I said,
I'm
hey,
like,
why don't you all come over at once? Let's
the
play
last
Secret
straw
Hitler
is
and see.
I'm not getting over this. When I started playing trivia, because like I started playing trivia like a few years before I started like really getting into Jeopardy, and like I was a little nervous to do it because I was like, I think my friends might not like me anymore after I start playing trivia with them. But I think it's because I'm not that good at it that I'm tolerable on a trivia team.
Right.
And
you're sort of like, you're like a lovable scamp kind of.
Yeah, where I'm just like, oh, there's a bunch of stuff that I definitely don't know, but sometimes I can pull out something, like, but if I was like a little bit better, I'd be absolutely unbearable. I say that apropos of nothing.
I'm just letting you know the circumstances in which I am detestable as a person. Here's one of them.
But yeah, this is like, I'm very excited to see how this plays out. I'm like very curious. Based on this, you might think Yogesh is the favorite now. I think he's got a really good shot.
Yeah, going into the semis, it feels kind of like with Chris off the board, Hannah off the board, some of the other players we're going to see in the next couple games off the board. Like, yeah, it could be.
It could be, and I mean, like, it will be we'll get into that a little bit more later in the show.
Sure. Okay. Well, let's get on to Thursday. Hit it for us.
Let's get on to Thursday. Our Thursday, February 29th, our quarterfinalists are Second Chance and Champions Wildcard champion Juveria Zahir, a psychiatrist from Whitby, Ontario, Canada. Oh yeah, that's our sound effect for when there's someone from Canada on.
You told me that sucked, but then you also didn't offer me another suggestion, so I'm just going to go with that one for now.
I mean, I don't have the rhetorical authority to decide on the Canadian sound effects we should be using, but
maybe I'll get like a loon call. Maybe I'll have like a loon sound effect that just plays when a Canadian comes up.
3-game champion Kevin Bell, aka Whiskey Ginger, a trail planner from Silver Spring, Maryland, and I don't know, I didn't put down how many games. 6-game champion Luigi de Guzman, an attorney from Louise, an attorney from Arlington, Virginia. We're getting loose already. So this game really felt like Juveria's game up until final. She ends the Jeopardy round with an almost $10,000 lead over both her competitors, and it takes Luigi finding both daily doubles to catch up to her in the double Jeopardy round, though he's still $1,400 shy of her $23,400 leading score. It all comes down to final. The category is world travel. The clue, the name of this service that began November 14th, 1994, echoes the Étoile du Nord, which linked Paris, Brussels, and Amsterdam from 1927. Only Luigi correctly guesses Eurostar and bets almost everything to win a spot in the semifinals. John, what'd you think of this game?
First of all, very nice pronunciation of Étoile du Nord.
From me?
Yes, from you.
Thank you.
Very good. Very good.
Merci.
Oh, okay. Should have stopped at no. That was very good. This was a classic. This is what I refer to as a classic TOC game where I love all three competitors, and I am not sad. Whoever wins is good. I was definitely cheering for Juveria, my Canadian sister, but and I just thought it would be a great story, right? She came all the way through Second Chance, Champions Wildcard. It seems crazy to imagine she lost her first game because she's so fucking good at the show.
Yeah, to say like 0-game champion, but then won both of those tournaments. Like, she is so good. Such a good player.
So good. And Luigi, I was surprised actually, like, at how badly Juveria was stomping him to start, because he was so good in his run. And then, he really turned it on in Double Jeopardy. And it was, it was great to see him win. I would have been thrilled for Juveria. I would have been thrilled for Whiskey Ginger. It was a great, just one of those games where I love everybody and I was happy no matter what happened.
I mean, this was a dream blunt rotation for sure.
Yes.
And like, you got to think too that the people who are coming off of the Second Chance and the Champions Wildcard have a slight advantage at just being more recently practiced at the buzzer. Like, it's been a minute for Luigi, and he kind of had to take a minute to sort of like get back into it, I'm sure. Whereas Juveria was just like top of her game going into it. I was definitely upset that she didn't win for a number of reasons, both because of how well she played in the tournaments that got her here, and also because I do think she proved herself to be the better player in this game. You know, she got...
Agreed.
26 correct responses, 2 incorrect, while Luigi had 17 correct responses and 6 incorrect. And so that's the kind of game where I'm like, oh, it stings a little bit. But he is a good player. He deserves to be in this tournament. Whether he deserved to win this game, we can disagree on. But I think he's going to do well. He's not going to it's not a fluke.
No, not a fluke. Okay, the final game of the first round of the Tournament of Champions took place on Friday, March 1st. We had 3-time champ and Champions Wildcard winner Josh Sack, a traffic engineer from Boise, Idaho. 3-time champion Brian Henniger, a guest services agent from La Follette, Tennessee. And 8-game winner Stephen Webb, a data scientist from Longmont, Colorado. Ooh, this was rough.
Yeah.
This game was like watching a horror movie slowly play out over 22 minutes. Stephen Webb, obviously a great player, spent almost the entire game in the red while Brian and Josh duked it out for the lead. Brian had a great game and ended up in the lead going into final. Stephen, unfortunately, does not qualify for Final Jeopardy, which does end up being a double stumper. The category is Countries of the World. The clue, fearful of independence in 1975, around 120,000 of this country's people, a third of the population, fled to the Netherlands. Josh guesses Papua New Guinea, to which Ken responds, I believe Alex would sometimes say, oh, you're not even in the right part of the world. But I would never do that. I thought that was always a little rough on the contestants. Brian guessed Belgium. The correct answer is Suriname. Brian keeps enough money to win. Emily, hit me.
I mean, that Ken, just like a classic, like, bitchy middle school girl there, just being like, some people would think that, like, that dress wouldn't work on a body like yours, but I actually think it looks really good. Like,
I would never do that.
I would never say something so mean, but...
I would never wear it, but you are crushing it, girl.
Yeah. What can you even say about this game? That was, like... that was tough to watch. And I do think this might have been a little bit the advantage of the people who have recently played in the tournaments, because it has been so long since Steven was on the show, and he probably was a bit rusty. And I do think the momentum is so important. And when he starts out in the red, it just like the stakes keep getting higher for him staying in the red. But that was just it's like an actual nightmare of what could happen. And he was such a great player during his run that it's like, that this is a fluke for him, and he could have just been having a really bad day. But this was just a weird one. It was a weird one. This is the tournament of chaos in full effect.
This watching this game felt like I was just getting kicked in the Josh sack for the entire game. Like I felt so bad for Steven, because I very much liked him in his original run too. Like, let's be honest, there are some people in this Tournament of Champions I would have loved to see that happen to. It would have been completely different. I'd have been like, yeah, that's right. Yeah, you don't know that, do ya? Yeah. But with Steven, I was like, oh God, like it just, and you could see it, like the pain. That's the other thing about this too, right? It's like, these are just regular people. They're not professional. Like the pain was etched on Steven's face, and the panic, like he just couldn't, no matter what. And he got the daily double and he got that wrong. And he just couldn't get himself in a winning position. Back in. Oh, it was awful. It was awful.
I relate to him in this game really hard. I will say, because on top of how the game is going, you have to also be thinking about, oh God, what is my face doing right now? I just don't want to be a meme. You know what I mean?
And it's so easy to be a meme on Jeopardy.
It's so easy to be a meme on Jeopardy. And again, not to name drop or brag or whatever, but I've been on TV before. And
whoa, wait a second.
So you and I are both stand-up comics. I was on Conan many years ago, and the first time I did it, I remember I was like, I felt so again, delusional. I felt so fucking ready. I wasn't nervous. I was like, this is gonna be great. I know what I'm doing. And then the curtain opens, you walk out, and I remember thinking, I should smile. But in that moment, I was like, oh, I've lost signal to my face. It was like a Houston, we have a problem situation. I had no concept of what my face could possibly be doing, could not communicate with it. I think I smiled, but it was true out of, and I have to imagine that's happening to them. It's just
for sure.
I can think about making my face look better right now, but it's not going to happen.
No, the first time I did a TV taping was the Halifax Comedy Festival up here in Canada, which they tape for CBC. And I don't know if you had this same feeling too, but I walked through the curtain, and then it's like, as you walk through the curtain, they've got that big camera on the giant boom, and it like swings to like follow you as you're like, because this was in a theater. So, you know, Conan's maybe a little different with like a smaller studio.
But
so
no, they
like
have one. Yeah.
Yeah, big theater stage. So this camera's like whooshing to like follow you. And I just couldn't stop thinking for the first like 2 minutes, like, I'm in TV right now. And I was not high. I was just like, dude, I am in TV.
And then you're just like, don't look right at the camera. Don't look right at the camera.
You're like, oh, you're just a part of it. And especially because like in Canada, like the Halifax Comedy Festival, it's iconic. Like the set dressing is the same every year and whatever. So it like adds to that feeling too.
Yes. You're like, I'm in the place.
I'm in the thing that I've watched on TV. Like it just, it's mental. It's mental. And you're only there for like 5 minutes. A Jeopardy taping is 22 or whatever. I'm sure when you're on Jeopardy, it must feel like it's 3 seconds long.
Yes. Oh. And I mean, even sitting in the audience, I was like, this feels 3 seconds long.
Right. Yeah.
It's so fast. All right. That's our game recaps. It's time to talk about our favorite anecdotes of the week +1.
+1. Yes.
Because we had
+1.
Yes.
Like, +1 anecdote. I was like, did I not prepare? Fuck. No. Okay. Yeah, we're good.
John, what was your favorite anecdote of this week?
I have already cheated, and I'm doing an honorable mention, as well as my actual answer. So my honorable mention, we've already talked about Kevin Bell's drag queen alter ego, Whiskey Ginger. And Kevin tells us about being in a drag pageant. And there's just one line in particular that I would like to focus on here. If we could play that, please, Dan.
Kevin Bell is a trail planner from Silver Spring, Maryland. Tell me about how your life has changed since Jeopardy. What was the big event?
Yeah, so I'm a Jeopardy champion. Thank God. I also have won a drag pageant since I was last year. Oh, thank you, Luigi. When I was last year, I talked about Whiskey Ginger, which was a great thing. And I actually have you to thank for this, Ken, because I used a Jeopardy-themed mix that I had created, and I included your infamous "What is a hoe" line.
Yeah, that's good, Dan. You can stop it there, which is...
to an inappropriate Nicki Minaj song that I can't talk about on TV.
There's not a lot of things I said on Jeopardy that work on Drag Night, but I'm glad you found one that
Thank you for your service.
Glad I could help.
So yeah, that was because I immediately warped to being at a drag show and a drag queen coming out to some kind of like EDM song where Ken's like, "What is a hoe?" is playing. I loved it.
I would love to see that.
I would love to see it too. And I did also like Kevin's just sort of like instinctive reaction to an older man being excited that he won a drag pageant. Like, oh, thank you, Luigi. Like that was a really nice, like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
You're a progressive. That's really nice.
Yeah, you never know.
Yeah, exactly. So that was really cool. But my anecdote of the week, my non-honorable mention, this one, and you'll notice as this show goes on, my preference is if you can land a tight joke in the anecdotes, because it's very hard to do.
It's hard to do.
And people try to do it and they fail. So if you can
definitely worse to try and fail than to not try.
Exactly. To just be like, I don't know, I like gummy bears, or like that's way better than trying to like get a joke off.
You are really coming off as extremely disrespectful of the contestants of this show.
I know, and I shouldn't be. It's just because I'm doing that voice. That's really I'll stop doing the voice, okay? But Brian Henniger tried to get a joke off and succeeded, and it was excellent. So that's my anecdote of the week. Brian Henniger, Dan hit it.
Brian Henniger is a guest services agent from La Follette, Tennessee. What did you do with your winnings, Brian?
Well, I got to pay off my car, which had been on my mind for a while. Got me a new laptop computer, new phone, but I really want to kind of splurge on something for myself. So I decided to take the plunge. I took delivery on a brand new Ferrari 458 Italia Spider.
Okay.
Racing wheel for my Xbox. Why do they always laugh when I say that?
had me going, Brian. I think that's a great purchase.
Well, thank you.
See,
Very
him
good.
saying
I mean,
him saying why do they always laugh ruins it for me a little bit.
yes, I agree. It's like, okay, you've said this before.
Don't quote.
But I did.
He landed the plane.
He landed the plane, and also what made it funny to me was the audience thinking that like 3 days winnings on Jeopardy would buy you a Ferrari, like that, and that they were happy for him. He's like, I bought a Ferrari, and people were like,
Whoa, yeah, hell yeah.
yes, wow, fuck yeah, dude. So yeah, that really hit for me. Great job, Brian. Emily, what about you?
I also had an honorable mention and a winner this week. My honorable and they're both from Tuesday's game. Honorable mention goes to David Sibley. Let's hear his anecdote.
David Sibley is an Episcopal priest from Walla Walla, Washington. Tell me about how Ed Sheeran changed your life.
That guy. So on game day, I got a ride share to the studio, and the driver was playing Ed Sheeran song after Ed Sheeran song after Ed Sheeran song. And I couldn't stand it. I was ready for anything else. And so I get to the studio and I start playing, and there's a one named rockers category that comes up. And there's a guy who comes on the screen with sort of reddish hair, looks youthful, and it's my nemesis. He must be vanquished at all costs. The words come out of my mouth. And it's, oh my God, I've made a terrible mistake, because it was Beck, who's not Ed Sheeran. But for that, I managed to make it into Billboard as making a hilarious mistake, which I think makes me the first priest in Billboard's website, at least since Father John Misty. I have questions about his ordination.
Your style seems very different from Father John Misty.
Again,
Welcome back.
Landing the joke.
I have questions about his ordination status.
Yeah.
Not a sentence you're going to hear too often on Jeopardy.
He not only landed the joke, but he looked right down the camera when he said it, which is impressive. And you gotta love a priest using his anecdote for redemption on his own missed clue. But my favorite anecdote of this week comes from Hannah Wilson in the same game, talking about how she prepared for the Tournament of Champions.
Hannah Wilson is a puzzle designer from Chicago. Tell me about how you prepped for the Tournament of Champions. I understand you got some help.
Yeah, so pop culture is not my strongest category, and my wife was trying to train me up. So she sent me a picture of Ice Spice every day, just like a different picture, and just said, "Who is this?" Until I said, "That's Ice Spice."
Wait till you see our "Is this or Ice Spice or not" category.
I'm hoping that's Final Jeopardy.
Coming up for
yeah,
sure.
We'll see.
Yeah, Final Jeopardy will be a rare video clue. Is this Ice Spice?
I just thought that was funny.
It's got to be said, that is masterful from Ken. That is really, really good from Ken.
He is really good at his job. I mean, that was the other thing from going to a taping is you're like, he's so quick. He doesn't use the prompter at all. He's just like, he's on it. And it kind of makes me mad. I'm like, he's so fast. Like, he's faster than I am by quite a bit. Let's talk about our favorite responses of the week.
All right. I once again have two responses. My first one, once again, comes from Thursday's game. Once again, comes from Kevin Bell. And, sometimes I have a simple mind. Let's go ahead. Just go ahead, Dan.
I desperately await this sound of you at the doorbell. It's the title of a Thoreau poem with song as one of the rhymes. Kevin.
What is dong? Ding dong?
I just love, what is dong?
What is dong?
Ding dong?
Ding dong? I missed that when I was watching it the first time. That's really funny.
What is dong? So I just really, anytime, again, you'll find, anytime someone says anything remotely like, what is dong?
Yeah.
I am going to get really into it. But my response of the week comes from game number 1 of the Tournament of Champions, Emily Sands, who had a very endearing Jeopardy response to a question that is also the way that I feel anytime I'm sort of like playing Jeopardy sim or a quiz with my friends, and I don't know if I've gotten the answer exactly right. This is exactly how I'd react, and I love that she did it on Jeopardy. Go ahead.
In 1955, Texas Judge Drummond W. Bartlett allowed this for the first time in a murder trial and presumably combed his hair and adjusted his robe. Emily?
What are cameras in the courtroom?
You'd be more specific?
Film cameras, television cameras, motion
Yeah, we'll take
cameras?
that. It was going to be televised.
I can just keep going.
Naming cameras till Ken says no. You're correct.
Yes.
Great strategy to just buzz in and say all of the things you think it might
Film
be.
cameras, television cameras, point and shoot cameras. I'll just keep naming cameras.
Yeah. Polaroid.
I loved that. And yeah, you're right, Emily. Like, more contestants should just do it. Don't wait for Ken to prompt you. I mean, in this case, he did prompt Emily, but don't even wait. Just say like four
Just
different
correct
things at
yourself
once.
a bunch of times. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So my response of the week has it's both the contestants' response as well as the audience response, because the audiences have been so vocal for these tournament games. It's been really, honestly, like, lovely to hear them like everyone's killing on these shows. And it is Juveria Zahir for her incorrect response to Around the World for 400.
Yes, I also had this on my list of potential responses this week.
Around the World for 4.
On this November holiday in Mexico, families gather to celebrate and remember their loved ones who have passed on. Chiveria?
What is Dios de los Muertos?
No. Kevin?
What is Dia de los Muertos? Los Muertos.
I think that's close enough, yeah. You could have just said Day of the Dead, Chiveria, but thanks for taking a shot.
Canadian, I don't know.
The audience loved that.
That's my girl. That's my girl right there. We take French in Canada. We do not. I mean, we do have Spanish in high school, but yeah, we're not.
But you don't
we're not,
have to learn it.
No, definitely not. No, most high schools give you the option. You start taking French in elementary school. If the closer you are to Quebec, the earlier you start taking it. So I grew up in Ontario and it started in grade 1, but in BC it doesn't start till grade 5, or sorry, for the American listeners, 5th grade.
The amount of Canadian shit you packed into that sentence. You said you described where the cities were in relation to each other. You used the phrase grade 1, and then you said sorry. I have to stop you because the podcast will explode if you keep talking.
Okay, I'm sorry. Juveria is from Whitby, Ontario, so probably would have taken French from grade 1. And then when you get into high school, they usually allow you to, if you want to switch from French to Spanish, you can.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's my whole story about that. Anyway, I love that moment as well.
That was great. She's a star. I don't think that's the last we're gonna see of her.
I agree.
It's time now for Jeopardy fans are fuming.
You didn't do your main choice.
Oh no, that
Or
was
did
it.
you?
That was it.
Okay.
I didn't
I
have
thought
an
you had
honorable mention. That was it.
as well. Okay,
No.
I'm the only one cheating. My apologies.
Yes. Yeah. I'm cool.
It is time for Jeopardy fans. Yeah, you're cool, and I'm a loser.
It's time for Jeopardy fans are fuming, where we break down all the tabloid clickbait Jeopardy generated this week.
Yeah, Emily, you said it's online is popping off. Tell me
Online
about it
is
here.
popping off this week. Let's find out what the press thinks Jeopardy fans are pissed off about now. First up, and there were a bunch of headlines this week, but also, so the U.S. Sun always writes like a new clickbait article every day that Jeopardy is on the air, but they were longer this week.
Oh.
One in particular, but first
Because they're
up,
sort of basing them on tweets, right? Sorry
they're
to
basing
interrupt you,
them
but-
on tweets and on like discussion on Reddit.
Okay. Okay.
So it's like a combination, but they got like sources to talk to them this week, which was wild. But we're gonna get to that. But first, because it was big news week for Jeopardy. Again, this episode's gonna be 5 hours long.
We're doing good. We're the timeline. We're doing great right now.
So Jeopardy made it to Fox News this week.
Whoa.
Yes,
Okay.
which is huge. So from Fox News, the headline is Jeopardy under fire over quote woke question about pronouns.
Oh, yes. This was one of my responses of the week because I was like, that's cool that Jeopardy wrote a question about neo-pronouns.
Yeah. So from the article on Fox News, it says, in the category speech, parts of speech, one of the contestants selected the $600 clue, which, as host Ken Jennings read, was Zem, Zirs, Zemself. The same contestant buzzed in to answer, what are pronouns? And Jennings awarded him the money, saying, those are pronouns, neo-pronouns. The show moved on quickly, with Jennings and the contestants jumping to the next question, but many viewers were surprised to see a clue about neopronouns on the game show. So then this is a quote. "So in order to win at Jeopardy, you need to be able to keep up with whatever bull the wokes are coming up with," one person asked on X. It's like, well,
I mean, kinda.
Yes, you do have to follow new information. That is part of what the show is about. And then another former fan said they are, quote, "done with Jeopardy." And one said that if they were asked the question, "I would answer by turning off the television, never watching that effing show again."
Well, if you're asked the question, wouldn't you be on the show?
Are you competing or are you watching it on TV? Do you think you can turn off other people's TVs if you're on Jeopardy?
I guess, yeah.
If you ever are on Jeopardy, you should be like, buzzing and just be like, "Alexa, turn off TV."
I love the way they wrote that, where they were like, Ken said neopronouns and then quickly moved on to the next question. Yeah, like, that's what happens after every fucking Jeopardy clue.
Yeah.
The idea that they were supposed to, I guess, have a conversation about it.
And they were also like, Ken awarded him the money, as if Ken is like judging whether he likes people and giving them the money that way.
Ken pulled $600 out of his pocket and personally handed it to the contestant who got it right.
And okay, the last quote from this article that is so funny to me was, "So much for Jeopardy," a complaint read. "The woke crowd has claimed another. That's okay. I have my King James Bible to read. Like God, that will never change." It's like, pretty sure the Bible has gone through like a few revisions over the years, but...
Yeah, you literally said King James Version.
Yeah!
You used the word version in there. The Bible's never changed since this one guy in the 1400s just said, "You know what? We should fucking change this thing, dude. We should change it up."
Newsweek also covered this story, but with a very different angle. Their headline was, "Jeopardy gets last laugh after backlash." They pointed out that Jeopardy gained a ton of Instagram followers in the days following this game, almost 10 times as many gains as the week before. So whether that has to do with like people just needing to talk about Chris Pannulo losing, or just it being the Tournament of Champions and people wanting to know what's going on, but like it didn't hurt them the way that the Fox News story made it out to be. But second up for this segment, I won't usually cover this many stories, but this is just such a big week.
It's the Tournament of Champions. We got to do it.
We got to do it. We have to talk about what was published by our friends at the U.S. Sun. The headline is "Apology Route," spelled R-A-U-T. Jeopardy contestant Yogesh Rout breaks silence after offending fans by, quote, "trashing the show" upon initial defeat. Jeopardy contestant Yogesh Rout is making amends for his previous outbursts as he returns for the 2024 Tournament of Champions. Last year, the three-day champ ripped the concept of Jeopardy being the, quote, "Olympics of quizzing." However, the decision to feature Yogesh in this prestigious tournament has left many fans bewildered. A social media user recently questioned, why would Yogesh go on a show that is fundamentally incompatible with true social justice, as he says, and, quote, "bad for the future of quizzing." Another expressed disbelief, stating, quote, "I cannot believe they invited him back. He went on record trashing the show. He has no business being on the Alex Trebek stage ever again." Yogesh responded to the controversy with a statement shared with the U.S. Sun. He said, and so I guess it's unclear whether the statement was shared with the Sun directly or if they found it somewhere else, but it really sounds like he gave comment
He
to
wrote
the
in. He wrote in. He's been reading the headlines.
He said, "Jeopardy is a wonderful opportunity for my peers and I to play competitively and have fun on a national quizzing stage, and I'm excited to be a part of the upcoming Tournament of Champions. While I certainly still stand by the notion that Jeopardy is not and should not be the pinnacle of the quizzing community, I want to emphasize my respect for the game and my fellow contestants. Jeopardy is just one part of the quizzing world, and for elite quizzers, it's not necessarily the end-all be-all. It's a platform to compete and win money with the knowledge we have already proved ourselves to have. I also want to state that I have encountered immense amounts of discrimination during my time competing in quizzes all over the country, and while Jeopardy is not the sole problem, I refuse to stay silent about the way those experiences have shaped me in hopes that others who come after me will bravely speak out about injustices they may face. The article goes on to recap the controversy that was stirred by his initial appearance on the show and his subsequent Facebook rants, which is honestly more than we could ever get into on this show. But they talk about him using his anecdotes to just talk about his trivia status and using Facebook to criticize the show and Amy Schneider. And but they conclude the article by pointing out that, quote, Yogesh has since posted sweet recaps on Facebook of each Tournament of Champions game, celebrating the highs and the lows of each episode. Recapping Hannah Wilson's shock defeat on Tuesday, he wrote, both she and her wife were tons of fun to be around all week, and it should surprise no one that last night she texted our group chat a video of herself good-naturedly karaokeing to Weird Al's I Lost on Jeopardy. So that is it for Jeopardy fans reviewing. But I was fascinated that the U.S. Sun, no one ever talks to them. I was shocked that he gave them such a...
I'm surprised.
And I did not read his full statement. It was long, but...
I'm surprised that he had more to say after the 9-part interview that he referenced in his anecdote. I'm surprised he had any words left for a statement for the U.S. Sun.
For the U.S. Sun, yeah. I mean, it's just I just really can't wait to see how this tournament plays out. I'm glad that he's having fun and he's being positive about it, because I think for a lot of people it was it's hard for someone to who has had the opportunity to be on the show to talk about it as if it was a bad thing for when it's a show that so many people care about, we care about it, but he is so good, and we'll see how it goes, but I'm fascinated to see how this plays out. But
me too, and I do wonder how much of it is that he's winning, oh yeah, I'm winning at the TOC, and I guess what, I like Jeopardy now. Does he have $500,000 in his bank account, and he's
right.
Hey, you know what, Jeopardy's actually kind of low-key sick.
By the time he's writing these recaps, he could be the winner of the Tournament of Champions.
100%.
Yeah.
He's actually, I take
all
everything
of a sudden,
back.
Before the tournament airs, he's I've changed my mind, and it's actually the most fair competition.
Yeah, I sort of do think it is the quizzing Olympics, actually. I've sort of changed my mind on all of that. It's sort of the peak of quizzing. When you really get down to it, it is kind of actually the peak. Fun stuff with Yogesh.
He is going to write about us.
I hope so. We can only hope. All right, well, we will finish off the show every week with a final Jeopardy deep dive, because we know that the two of us are very stupid and we want you to learn something before you leave this show. So every week, Emily is going to choose one final Jeopardy clue that she wants to learn more about, and then I will do some internet research about that topic. Emily, which final Jeopardy did you want me to dig into this week?
So this week, I thought it was only fitting to make you a Canadian teach me something about American history that I did not know, which was the final Jeopardy category from February 28th, Yogesh's game, the clue about the coin flip to gain the alliterative title of senior senator.
Yes. Okay. So it noted in that clue there were two people who were mentioned, Hiram Fong and Bob Bartlett. So the two of them were the first senior senators from Hawaii and Alaska, respectively. And so Hiram Fong's story is not that interesting, but Bob Bartlett's is amazing. First of all, I will say the coin flip happened because typically the senior senator is just whoever's been serving longer. Senatorial terms do not overlap. So every state usually will have a senator that has been serving longer than any of the other senators, and they're just de facto the senior senator. But because Alaska and Hawaii entered the Union late, the two senators in each case were starting at the same time. So they didn't know who should be named senior senator. So they decided to hold a coin flip, which Bob Bartlett won over his competitor, or I guess not competitor, fellow senator, Ernest Gruning. And then Hiram Fong won over, I believe, Orrin Long, I think is the name. But anyway, let me tell you about Bob Bartlett, because this is amazing. So Bob Bartlett was born in Seattle, Washington, and then attended the University of Alaska, graduated from there in 1925, and then stayed in Alaska. So in a way, he's like a kind of like Alaskan hero. FDR appointed him the secretary of the Alaska Territory in 1939, where he served under the governor who was Ernest Gruening. Now, Ernest Gruening was demoted to being the governor of Alaska. He originally worked in the Department of the Interior for FDR, and then FDR didn't really like him and said, hey, guess what? You're now the Alaska governor, go live there. So people in Alaska always kind of felt, yeah, go kick rocks. And hey, you know where it has a lot of rocks? Alaska. And so it was really funny. So FDR tells Gruening, hey, guess what? You're going to be the governor of Alaska. Gruening says no. FDR goes on the radio for one of his fireside chats and announces his appointment of Ernest Gruening as the governor of Alaska, even though Gruening said no. So then Gruening was like, well, shit, he said it on the radio. I guess I better go do it. And so Gruening and Bartlett worked together. They're 17 years apart. Gruening is 17 years older than Bartlett. So Bartlett was his secretary. And initially, the relationship was positive despite... I read an article from the Anchorage News that wrote about this whole coin flip controversy thing. Partnerships aside, the two men were little alike. As described by historian Klaus M. Naskey, Bartlett became the consummate politician, skilled in the backroom battles behind every successful legislative act. Gruening lacked the same deftness with political skullduggery and was as subtle as a charging moose. At his best, he was an effective steamroller, but at his worst, he was ignored as a relic. Apparently, Gruening saw Bartlett as a son, but Bartlett saw him as a patsy who was not effective politically and took more credit for Alaska becoming a state than he should have. Bartlett kind of felt like he was the driving force in Gruening's office for Alaska becoming a state, and Gruening took all the credit for it. Bartlett said... Gruening asked Bartlett to his face why Bartlett disliked him so much, and Bartlett responded, how can you approach logically a man who distorts facts always to suit his own fancy and his own needs and desires? It is impossible.
Oh, man, I wish I had that. I will say, like, I have been asked by multiple people to my face, why don't you like me? And I wish I had that answer just ready to go.
It is simply impossible to like you, basically. But the only, and this is another quote from the article, the only compliment Bartlett could garner for Gruening was the latter's ability for self-promotion. In a 1963 letter, Bartlett wrote that future historians would, quote, understandably give Ernest a place as the foremost leader of the statehood movement he simply does not deserve. They do so because he, farsighted, has written his own history of what went on, and this is the published work to which historians of the present and future have to refer. No one else has put down the true and contrary story. That is my fault. So
wow.
Everybody in Alaska knew these two hated each other. They both got appointed the first two senators of Alaska, and it was Gruening's idea to do a coin flip. So they had to coin flip for term, and they had to coin flip for who got called the senior senator. So Gruening won the coin flip for term. They picked 2, 4, or 6 out of a hat. And they both didn't want 2 because then it would mean they would come up for re-election in 2 years. But they were just picking it out of a hat. So Gruening got the first pick. He picked 4. Bartlett unfortunately picked 2, but he did get re-elected in 58. But anyway, being senior senator is an honorific. There's no tangible benefit to being it, but they both hated each other so much that they said that the coin toss took place in the Alaska State House and the room was packed full of reporters. They said there was reporters standing on chairs trying to get a look at what the coin toss would end up being. They recreated the coin toss photo with the two of them kneeling on the floor looking at what the coin ended up. Bartlett won the coin toss to become the senior senator, and rumor has it that for the remainder of his political career, in back channels referred to Gruening as Junior.
Oh, wow. That is so childish. I really love it.
So petty and good. And then the last word on Bob Bartlett, he's actually a legend. So Library of Congress says that he got more bills passed than any person in Congress ever to this date, including the Bartlett Act, which mandates that every federally funded building is accessible for people with disabilities.
Oh, shit.
So that is his lasting legacy, as well as his blood cold hatred for Ernest Gruning. So there you go. There's the story of senior senator Bob Bartlett. And I loved every bit of learning about that.
Oh, wow. That's wild. You have to just imagine that one of the Jeopardy researchers also learned all of that while writing that clue.
Definitely, yeah. It was a great article. Maybe we'll link it in the show notes or whatever if you want to read it. But it's really good.
Yeah, that's a great call. So these are really just for our listeners if they ever get in a time machine and end up on Jeopardy and have to face these clues.
Exactly. Now you're covered.
Thank you so much for that. That's our show. We hope you join us. We're going to be back next week talking about the next 5 games of the TOC. And Monday, we have Ike Barinholtz competing against Ray Lalonde and someone else who I don't care about. I'm sure it's someone that I like, but it's just like those two. I'm like, I cannot wait to watch that game, and I can't wait to talk to you about it. So
it's going to be incredible. I am very excited. We both know Ike a little bit. He's been a guest on Blocked Party, and I know you know him as well. And Ray is Canadian, so obviously I also know him. So it's going to be a very fun show. If you're listening to this, please subscribe to the show. You'll get the episode every week. Tell your friends about it if you love Jeopardy and you love this show. Hopefully you love it. Tell them. And you can also follow us. We're on Instagram at What Is a Jeopardy Podcast, and we're on Twitter at Jeopardy Podcast. So give us a follow, and we'll see you back here next week.
bye.
Bye.
We still need to sign off. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll get there. How do they sign off Jeopardy? They just say like, see ya. See ya.
They just play the music, and then like there's a video of people talking and you can't hear what they're saying. But you can't really
so
do that
you
with
and I
podcasts.
just have to start like mouthing words.
Yeah, you just
People
have
will
to
be very
hear like our
confused.
little mouth sounds. Is that good podcasting?
We're absolutely not.
Turn the podcast off.
We
That's
just
it.
sign off.